Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Videomail for the week of December 5th, 2011. Welcome to the site to the new members and welcome back to the old members. The Ask Videomail, don't forget, is your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this one. But in order to answer your question, you need to send it to me. So please send your Ask Videomail questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions I get and I answer the ones that I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a stupid question, so send it in to get the most value out of your subscription here on this site. December 5th, wow, it's getting late in the year. There will be no interruption in the video mails or the lectures as we go into the holidays. I know it's kind of hectic around this time for people, so if you it would be a shame if you missed the videos, so make sure you log onto the site and check the videos out. I don't want them to be archived before you have a chance to see them, but I do need to continuously archive all the material once it is 2 months old. CTN was last month, and so that's behind us, but there's a lot more to look forward to. I'm talking to an individual about doing a workshop in Montreal in January. And I'm definitely doing Animalia, I'm not sure how to say it, but that's going to be in the Czech Republic in September of next year. So that's pretty far out. I'm going to try to do as many speaking engagements and workshops and master classes as I can next year. That's my resolution. So there'll be more chances for you guys to come out and we can all hang out and do some animation together and have a lot of fun. The site, however, is how I get the information out to you on a weekly basis. I would love it if you told more people. I do think that I offer some resources that you can't get anywhere else, and the fact that your questions are the questions that spawn these Ask Video Mails, I think is a really unique thing. So if you have a friend who's never heard of the site, tell them about the site. The Friends of Kenny promo code still works, and they can sign up, no obligation, and just check the site out. You get a referral bonus even if they sign up with a promo code. So go ahead and tell them that there's no risk and just to check it out. This Ask Video Mail, it's a very interesting question. I'm actually going to be answering kind of two people at the exact same time. I feel like it's necessary, if only because it seemed like both of these people have kind of the same fundamental misunderstanding about one of the things that I've already shown on the site, and it has to do with cycles. So let's take a look at the question real quick. Okay, so both Timu and Paolo have asked about a cycle where the stride length is different, and I'll just start right off the bat, start right up front by saying that's impossible. If it's a cycle, then the stride length is the same for every single IK mover in Z space. Every single. Doesn't matter what it is. Now, it took me a long time to figure this concept out. No one taught this to me, and it was a huge struggle because I was thinking to myself, like, well, what if you have a zombie, all right, and he's moving like one leg works and he's dragging the other leg behind. If he's dragging the other leg behind, he's obviously not the dead leg is not moving as much as the one that's good, that's working. No. They're moving the exact same distance in one cycle as each other. Okay? I think to myself, like, if someone's moving and their arm is trailing behind them, it doesn't matter. If they're running full speed and their hand is back here, like trailing behind them, full speed, it doesn't matter. The hand, the right hand, the back hand, the front hand, the waist or cog or whatever it's called in your rig, and both feet are all moving the exact same distance in one cycle of that cycle. Okay, so now the way that Timu brought it up is very interesting. So let's take a look at just the Nico rig real quick. This rig is the rig that I did, the quick quad walk. If you haven't seen the lecture quick quad walk, it's in the archive now. You should definitely check it out. The quick quad walk is basically an hour-long tutorial on how to get the basic four-legged walk that you can apply any, it's a vanilla walk basically. So it's a really good lecture to watch if you're planning on taking the Animals and Creatures masterclass at Animation Mentor. It's really good if you got your first job and you've never animated a quad before, but you've animated lots of other characters and whatever. But at any rate, let's take a look at Nico here. So you'll see that Nico's proportions are very exaggerated. So his two front feet are much shorter than his two back feet. So let's just like stretch them out to the elbows max right there, and let's grab these and stretch them out to the elbows max right there. Okay. So look how much longer his back legs are than his front his arms basically, or his front legs. Okay. Now what this means is that you don't have a greater stride length for the rear legs than the front. What it means is that when you're doing your walk cycle, the back legs are going to be traveling far less than they're possibly able to. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that you have a different stride length when your proportions, to answer Timu's part of the question, your proportions will dictate your workflow. So looking at Nico, these arms being much shorter than the legs only means that you need the arms to dictate that stride length. Okay? So right here is as far back as it can be possibly stretched. And right there is as far forward as it can possibly be stretched. Okay, and you normally want to bring them in, but let's just say that these are our two poses. Well, then you know your maximum stride between these legs is whatever this is, negative 59.23. So let's say that's negative 60. And this is positive 60. So you know your maximum stride length is 120, right? So let's add 120 to this. And if this is at oops, 120. Oops. No, I need to go all the way past. So 60 plus 120 would be 180, right? So this would be the other side, right? So 120 plus 60, 180. So here it is. All right. So so here's the point. If you get a character that looks like Nico, all it tells you is that your choice of stride length is dictated by these shorter arms. In fact, just kind of like looking at him now and getting used to this, I mean, just look how crazily proportioned this character is. He's really, like, the proportions are really nuts. There's no animal that looks like this that walks on four legs in the real world. Kangaroos have extremely long legs and very short arms, but they're mostly bipedal. They walk bent over, kind of like a T-Rex, and they'll use their arms and rest on their arms, but they're not actually mobile on four legs. And these are pretty wild proportions right here. Okay. So let's just open up. Let's just make a really quick scene. Okay. This is just basically going to be a really simple rig. Okay. With two boxes next to each other. Okay, like this. And these are both, let's zero these both. Let's parent them underneath the curve. Okay. Now, no matter what it is, I'm setting this key of frame 1 and 24. I'm translating it back 10 units. I'm translating the boxes forward 10 units. Okay. And just going to play it over and over, and obviously everything is linearly interpolated, so that master controller that the controls are walking away from, if you want, as you will, are, you know, staying perfectly still. We could flat these tangents actually. That might give us a little bit more of a feeling like it is a cycle. So let's just do that. Okay, so ignoring the what do you call it? Ignoring the control here. These are actually cycling forward. In fact, let me just hide. Oh, you can't hide because it's the parent. It's the child. Here's a little trick. You can actually just make a quick render layer and just leave out the parent, and it doesn't hide the children. It's a pretty quick trick. Anyway, so here you go. So now let's make it 24,000, frame 24,000, all right? And so all of the translate Z's, you remember this from the cycle lecture, you remember all of this stuff, okay? All these translate Z's, let's show infinity, and we'll make the post infinity cycle with offset with everything, okay? And as you can see, they're moving perfectly opposite each other, all right? So as it goes, here's, you know, we're up to frame 100. Now we're up to frame 200. And this is really boring. Let's just go all the way forward to frame 21,000. Here, it's still working perfectly because we typed it in. We found that stride length, we just typed it in. But even if the translate Z, I'm going to do something crazy here. 10.01. Look at it. Look what a difference that made. It's all the way up here. And as you go along, you see that cube just sneaking away from that center point. So even the slightest difference in stride length means that you're not getting a correct walk cycle. Now, to answer Paulo's sort of side of the question, there was an Ask Videomail in November or December of last year where it was asked how to make cycles look interesting. Yours is, Paulo, your part of this question is kind of like that, in that the way that if you hadn't mentioned anything about stride length, I would have said that your question is really close to that Ask Videomail. But but since you did ask about stride length, it leads me to believe that you're asking a lot more about making things asymmetrical in such a way that it's actually the character like really like either like moving forward like this or something like that, or doing like very, very different things on either side of the body. Okay. Believe it or not, no matter how like turned they are, and if like they're running forward and then they turn their body and like all within one cycle, at the end of the cycle, if it's created correctly, again, every single world IK, hands, waist, or cog, and feet will move the exact same distance in Z space, okay? So the short answer for how to, if I have any tips on making it so that you can do some really asymmetrical stuff on a cycle, I'm reminded of that old Videomail where the point really is you have to make your cycle longer for the more unique moments there are in your cycle. So if you have a zombie and he's plodding forward and like one of his steps is kind of like a trip, then you don't want him to trip every single cycle, right? So your cycle might have to be 8 steps long. So he takes 7 steps and then does a little stumble, and then takes 7 steps and does a little stumble. Okay, does that make sense? But no matter what, and it's great because it's a hard, fast rule, which is just fantastic. It lets us all off the hook. But no matter what, the translate Z needs to be cycle with offset, and every single one of those main world space controllers has to travel the same distance. Okay? And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Or actually, you know what? You can think about it and it can still make no sense. I promise it took me a really long time. I was months into my time at Weta before I fully understood like the first frame and the last frame being a copy of each other, and everything being cycle, and then the translate Z's being cycle with offset, and what that meant for all of the controls in the character. And once I discovered that, I'm not trying to, you know, like knock on anybody's work, but once I discovered that, I went through the library of cycles that were available to the animators, and I found that most of them had been eyeballed, which was why in like a shot that, you know, I had a couple shots that were really long, hundreds of frames, which was why after a couple hundred frames, all of a sudden, like the feet were marching out from underneath the body on like a run cycle. So it's very important, very, very important. All right, but I did want to just put that final nail in the coffin in terms of stride length. The stride length is 1 number for the entire body, and that's it. So thank you guys for that question. I hope there's no more confusion about this ever, and that you guys have taken a look at the quick quad walk and maybe some of those old Ask Video Mails that are in the archive that deal with cycles, because I do talk about cycles in a few video mails so far, but this is hopefully the last one where the whole issue of stride length is ever in question again. Okay, thank you for that great question. I'd love to have more, guys. Please send your questions in. Send them to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I promise there's no such thing as a dumb question. It's a joy to receive questions. I always get, after I release the video mail, I always get a few more questions, and it's nice. But maybe when you're working next time, you can just have a little pad of paper, and if you run into anything, it doesn't matter how small it is, anything, because I like to do demos during the Ask Video Mail as well. If you run into anything, write it down. Also, someone a few weeks back sent in their Maya file, and I opened up their Maya file, and it was a real joy to use someone else's file to show off a Maya concept. So you can also send in your Maya file, and I'd love to show it off for everybody else. Okay, that'll do it for this week. Thanks for the great questions. Timu and Paolo, send in more. Everyone enjoy your holidays. Hopefully your year is wrapping up nicely, and you're looking forward to some holiday time and relaxation. So good luck with that, okay? And good luck with your animation, and as always, rock on.